Hello, my name is Steve Higgs. I'm running for the board. I'm going to make this video. I've been promising some people I was going to make this video for a while, but I've been waiting to get some stuff on my in here to where I can basically have better numbers for you and let you know more about what's going on. The first thing I want to talk about is there's actually 6 of us running for the board. But it's kind of evident that there's 3 running for the current board. That is who the current board wants to win, and that's who they're pushing to win. And then there's 3 of us that's running for the board that is not really getting a fair shake at anything. But for the first thing I want to bring, it's me, Brian Barrick, and John Barrick. And I'd like to see the 3 of us get on the board where we can make some changes that's well needed. And the reason you'll find out why these changes are well needed when I get through with this video. Hopefully you'll have a better understanding. These current board doesn't want to go back and they just want to move forward. They don't care just as long as they're moving forward. They don't want to know any history. Basically, I've gone to board meetings and it started out at 5 minutes you could talk, then it went to 3 minutes, then it goes to 2 minutes. Basically, the board don't want to hear about what I have to say. So anyway, first thing I'm going to talk about is the other 3 candidates that's running with Steve Short. Steve Short, and there's 2 new people that have moved here. His name is Brian Sanders and Susan Dial. And they have been kind of together, running ads together, and they're just kind of together on this thing. They're trying to get them 3 themselves elected. And Susan Dial and Brian have never, ever met me. They've never even spoke to me. They're only going by what they've heard. And my wife talked to Susan Dial, and she says that, she don't want to hear about the history of Falconhead. She just wants to move forward. So they sent out a letter with their deal. There are 3 of them are running for the board, and there's 3 pictures of them and their background and everything. And they sent this letter out to selected few, not to every member, only to a few members. And basically, it's about the past that's been said about me. So I'm going to clear some of this stuff up. Number 1, they've got down here, I'm not going to read it word for word, but it says, during Higgs' time as general manager, Falconhead received an IRS $66,000 and a $19,000 penalties for filing W-2s that I ignored. Well, that's not true. I've got all the paperwork here to back it up. Letters were sent to the IRS. And by the way, these were for years 15 and 16, I believe. And I've got where Misty was actually contacting them. We wrote them letters. We were working on getting to the bottom of this. And the reason that this, when I took over, Deborah Keller was doing payroll. She'd been doing payroll for 20 years. She'd been here forever. And I assumed she knew what she was doing. I am not a CPA, and I'm not a guy that does taxes. So anyway, she got fired. And shortly after that is when all this stuff started coming up, messed up, okay? So I don't know what went on there. We never got to the bottom of it. I got let go before we could get to the bottom of this. So I've never seen proof that Falconhead's ever paid any of this, so I don't know. We can't get to the bottom of it. If they're going to run this kind of letter, they should have proof that these things were actually paid and it was on my behalf that caused this stuff to happen. So that's one thing I don't agree with this letter. Like I said, 2 of these board members don't even know who I am. They've never even met me or talked to me, and they're sitting here talking about this, sending a letter out with them, And then the other thing is, they sent this out, and they talked about the road equipment that I bought. That was, it was basically unsuitable. Okay. Well, let me clear some things up on this road equipment, and I'm going to get into some other stuff here in just a little bit to clear some more stuff up. But on the road equipment, I had board approval to borrow $115,000 for a new asphalt zipper that basically chews up the roads to where you can grade it back and build the road base back. And we also bought a polymer glue that we glue the road back together with. And we had 15 totes of that stuff. It was over $15,000 worth of that stuff that never got used. And I'll get into that as well. But instead of buying this road zipper that was $115,000, I found one in Ohio through a company called Roadhog that had 8 hours on the machine at the factory, and it was $47,000. Me and Jocko drove 24 hours straight to Ohio, tested the machine, loaded the machine, and brought it home. We wrote a check for $47,000. Didn't know at the time we wrote the check whether we'd have to get a loan on it or not. As it turned out, we made enough money that we never borrowed any money on the Roadhog or any other machinery that we ever bought. The time as me being general manager, we never sold any property of Falconhead, and we never borrowed another dime other than it was already borrowed at Falconhead, the long-term debt. And I'll get into that later. So we go to work on these roads, and we're pretty much set up to rebuild these roads. All we like is a spreader for the dump truck, and we weren't even going to have to buy a machine to put the sealer down for the chip and seal, because when you buy the material, they'll spread it for you. You just got to put the chip down as you go, okay? So we were pretty much doing everything in-house, total everything, okay? And so we also come up about the time they got rid of me is Steve Short puts together a road committee, okay? Well, I don't know what the road committee was for, but anyway, it's never done nothing while I was there, and it's never done nothing since, okay, other than sell all the equipment. Then Diana Morrison about running a restaurant. All she could ever talk about was a restaurant committee, okay? Don't know if everyone's put together or not, but just this last month, food cost was 76% in the restaurant, okay? It's lost a ton of money, all right? Now, we'll get into, so what I'm getting at with this letter, I think it's wrong for somebody to send out something that's negative on somebody else that they have no proof of what went on and don't know the history other than what they've been told on one side. So that tells me all I need to know about the other three candidates running for the board, okay? Now, I want to get into, before I get into this graph that I'm going to show you here in a minute, and when I say I want people to know that everything I do in my life is led by God, and that anything that I'm capable of doing is a blessing from God. And with all the talents that I have to run this place and to do what I have done for Falconhead over the years has been a blessing from God. I just want people to know that. And the other thing is, when it come time, so I had this thing paid down pretty good. You know, We had bought probably $100,000 worth of equipment. We'd went through a flood in 2015 that wiped out all the equipment. Every piece of equipment on the golf course had been underwater. My hangar over here at the airport was 6 foot underwater. I lost $250,000 personally through the flood. I helped fix all the equipment to get it back up and running. And we got all that stuff up and running, and we continued on. Well, the reason I tell you that story is because as soon as the new board took over and they made Rick Goddard the president of the board, the first thing they wanted to do, and they were doing it behind my back. So anybody that's dealt with these people in I'm talking about the current board, knows that they do things under the radar. They sell 150 acres of property under the radar and get money for it. They sell all the equipment off, road grader, road hog, all the equipment. They're down to a couple of tractors, brush hogs, and one skid steer, okay? They went from doing things in-house to hiring nearly everything done. So the reason I tell you that story is because as soon as Rick Goddard became the president of the board, they were going behind my back trying to borrow a couple of $100,000 or more to buy Terry brand new equipment for the golf course. And when I say new equipment, I'm saying a couple of spray rigs, a couple of greens mowers, and they were going to borrow all this money, and they were only getting $1,200 per equipment trade-in on this stuff. And they were going to do like 6 pieces of equipment. And I pretty much threw a fit because we'd spent 3 years trying to get this place out of the hole. And I'm fixing to, when this video, there should be a graph come up on this video, and you'll be able to see this graph later in the video. But I want you to realize what I took over. And before I get to that point, I still talk about, so I threw a fit about it. All the board members called a meeting, met in my office, and I got to the bottom of what they were trying to do. And I said, okay, that's fine. Y'all go ahead and borrow all the money you want, but I want you to know that I don't support it, and I'm going to let the members know exactly what y'all are doing. I've always kept the members informed on everything that we were doing. We always, if anybody wanted to come in the office, they got to look at whatever they wanted to do, anything. It was easy, okay? I'm not taking the credit for all the stuff that was done in the office, because Patsy Shankles was a huge help in the office. Another guy that came in and really helped us out was Jerry Moon. He was a huge help getting the finances in order, because the previous, when they left, said that the hard drive busted. We didn't have anything. We had to completely rebuild everything from scratch. All right. So anyway, I'm telling the board in my office, hey, if y'all do this, y'all are going to be at, well, it ends up, they didn't buy all that equipment. I don't know. It was after the fact. They done let me go. I don't know if it was because they couldn't borrow the money. I don't know if it's because I had put enough of it out there that they didn't want to be exposed about it, but they only bought one or two pieces of equipment, okay? So that leads me to this, and basically what I want y'all to realize is when I took over in 2015, basically had no intentions of ever being the general manager or the board president. But the board previous to what I ended up putting together was in 2013 and 14, you didn't have a vote. You had a vote, but corporations like Genco had 1,300 votes. So you could never beat the one corporation that had 1,300 votes. So I ended up getting it changed so that you only get one vote no matter how many pieces of property you own. And understand, Genco, they were developer status. They got 1,300 and something votes, and they only paid $2 a lot for dues on their lots. So that's something they voted in themselves. All kinds of crooked things was going on, okay? So I ended up, nobody ran against me, and I thought, well, what could one person do on the board that's going to change it all? Well, as soon as I got on the board, I started getting facts. I started digging into stuff. And by the time I ended up taking the board seat, I had dug up enough information that it changed the minds of nearly everybody on the board. They went against each other, and they ended up made me the board president of the board. Okay, didn't see that coming at all. Then, when I really get into the office, and really, Patsy Shankles became the secretary. And when we got in there and started digging stuff up, we started finding all kinds of money missing. We found all kinds of stuff. So we fired the general manager. Well, one of the board members at that time, his name was Darrell Roberts. He was a lawyer, ex-state senator on the board. He said, Steve, that's going to cost you $500,000. She had a contract. Well, I said, I've never seen a contract. And I said, so we did it, and ended up back to being honest. I didn't give her vacation money right off the bat. Ended up costing Falconhead $5,000 penalty on that. But we got rid of her. They put me in. I agreed to do this for a year, free of charge. And we saved $85,000 on her salary for the first year. And we ended up paying her $50,000 total. It was $25,000 for lawyer's fees and $25,000 to settle with her, or it was going to cost another $25,000 to finish it out in court. So I saved more money than what it actually cost Falconhead. And understand, when we took over, the situation was pretty grim. All right, what I want to show you is, or tell you is, we, in 2015, this is May of 2015, we had $112,968 in the checking account. We had accounts payable of $110,869. Our long-term debt was $395,000. Our total debt was $393,000. So understand, when I pay accounts payable, I don't even have money for payroll. And that was one of the reasons for getting rid of the general manager, was because we couldn't even make payroll. People were having to hold their checks in order to get them cashed at a later date. Okay, in 1 year, in 2016, May of 2016, we had $119,900 in the bank. We had accounts payable of $15,500, and we had shrunk the long-term debt from $395 to $339. That put us down to $234,000 net total debt. In 2017, $117,000 in the bank, $16,000 accounts payable, shrunk the debt a little bit. We're still sitting at $233. The reason for that was we bought more equipment, okay? And by doing that, we weren't able to pay the debt down as much. Okay, in 18, $281,000 in the bank, $6,000 accounts payable. The long-term debt was $218,000, and the net debt, total net debt, was $56,798. All right, 2019, and when I say $56,798, I'm saying that's in the green. We finally went from we're debt free. We're in the green now in 2018. 2019, we're $100,000 in the green in May. Okay, they get rid of me in May. 2020. The new board the new board has $338,000 in the checking account, but $143,000 of that money came from COVID money that they got. That put them $88,000 in the red. And that's with getting the $143,000. Okay? In 2021, they sold off some property. They ended up with $238,000, and they still have the COVID money. And they have a lot of money in the account, understand, but they sold property to do it. But they increased the long-term debt. The long-term debt in 2020 went to $268,000. In 2021, it went to $308,000. So now they're going back downhill. In 2022, they're $281,000 in the red. Okay? If they continue on that same track, they are going to be, in 2025, they'll be $900,000 in the red. The reason that I'm doing this, the only reason I'm doing this is I want the members of Falconhead to have a voice that they just don't have right now. These 7 board members think they know what's right on everything for the members of Falconhead. And I disagree with that. You know, when they sold the land over there, they set a precedent. You know what? You know, pretty much the golfers run the board because they're worried about their golf course. There's actually only about 70 to 80 households at most that golf in here. The rest of the people in here don't golf, but they still help subsidize the golf course. You know, it's time that we start making some changes. Where I was headed as general manager, I was going to start putting a lot more money in infrastructure. We were going to be debt free. We were going to start having a lot more money for roads. We were going to cut some stuff out on the golf course. And we were going to start we were going to take the land they sold and we were going to make some trails over there so people could ride their UTVs. We were going to put a splash pad in for the kids. We were going to do a lot of things that we had envisioned. Instead, there was even family golf. That was why it got voted in. You know, that's why a lot of the people that live in Falconhead, I don't know if they supported this thing or not. It was voted in back when Genco had power. But the thing of it is, at least if they don't golf when their grandkids come to see them, they could go golf. It was called family golf. This previous board has managed to take that away. The current board has managed to take that away. And instead, you know, so they're taking that kind of stuff away. Then, you know, they sold the land off. You'll no longer get that. What happens, I'm just saying, what happens if the people that live in here get a hold of the board and we don't have golfers on the board? Is that okay for them to go sell the golf course next? Because understand, they've sold off the airport. They've sold off the horse stables. They've sold off 150 acres in the camping area down there where we had the RV park. You know, it's just one thing after another. They're down to where they can't sell anything else. So now what's going to happen is when they go in the hole, they're either going to raise your dues, and you say, well, they can't raise the dues without a vote. Well, guess what? They can assess you any amount, anytime. So that's essentially raising your dues. Or they can go borrow more money and put you further in debt. Either one is not good. And that's what they have showed that they're doing. And that's where they're going. So there's some other things I wanted to cover. I just kind of drawing a blank right now. It'll come to me. But this is probably a long enough video to get you to understand where you know, they've basically said a bunch of lies about me, and not just me, other people, other board members that didn't believe their way, that stood up to them. And they talk about a rubber stamp board. Well, understand that this board is as much of a rubber stamp as any of them. That's why they want these people that don't have any experience, that have lived at Falconhead for a very short period of time, to be voted in for them, so that they can continue to feed them a line of stuff that's not true and do what they want to do. So I'm going to stop this video at this, and we'll see what happens from here. And I would appreciate your vote, but if I get good response on the video, I will do more. But if not, good luck to all of you, and God bless you all. Thank you very much.